So welcome to today's driver fitting. It is a shaft fitting predominantly this time around because Tom, who was with us 4 years back, the shaft has started to delaminate and fail, so we're going to look at an alternative so that you can play golf without worrying the head's going to come off.
Absolutely.
So Rune 4 years ago built a G410 LST with a Fuji Pro 6.0, now 2.0. This shaft's no longer available, so we've got to look at alternatives and yeah, see if we can get your driver back in play and rather than on the scrap heap. So we'll get heading soon and see what we can do.
Sounds good.
So you're going to start off, because we can't use the original shaft because we don't want the head ending up in the net. Just starting off with something really inoffensive, very similar to the Fuji Pro series in terms of weight and balance point, to have a relevant start point based on what we did previously. So got the C6 Blue 60, which will mean absolutely nothing to you.
Yep.
It's just a golf shaft. So we'll get a few hits with that, get a benchmark. I've set it to the same setting that your driver was in originally from a loft point of view. And then let me know if you want tee height higher or lower. And we'll use this as a bit of a benchmark and take it all from there.
Just go for it.
Yep, whenever you're ready. Yep. So generally speaking, when you've been playing recently, has there been anything you've been working on or going back to from a swing point of view?
Well, I think like most, my biggest one is try and get rid of that little slice fade away going off. But one thing I've been looking at most, trying to close my face up a lot more.
Okay.
Trying to get rid of that has helped. So I've de-lofted it a bit more.
Yeah.
And try to slow my swing down a bit more, not get too energetic with it, but it's always a bit tricky.
Nice. So is there any of Tom's friends watching this? He does allegedly play off 16. Basically, just hit that 278 right down the middle.
Yeah, you know, on a good day.
Yeah. Good speed though. Nice speed though. Okay, so that's quite a nice benchmark. So essentially why I picked that one and why we picked the Fuji Pro originally was because it's not overly heavy in the tip end, with your miss being a little bit more to the right. We don't want the club getting stuck behind you and dropping behind you.
Yeah.
So what we can see with this one, it's coming through quite neatly. I mean, with what we fitted you before, you'd hope we get relatively close. But over the last 4 years, and back in 2020 we did that, you know, swings can change and timing and technique can change a little bit. But that's a really nice kind of start point. Looks comfortable, the swing, you know, it's not going to be a million miles off what you had before, certainly. But yeah, some good swings there. So that's a good start. So what I'm going to do is just going to push the limits on weight, see what gets a bit too heavy, see what throws the timing off, and then come back and see, relative to this, see where we settle with it.
Sounds like a plan.
How much are you generally playing at the moment?
So if I'm lucky, I'm probably averaging at least a round every fortnight, maybe.
Okay.
And if that's fortunately through work or through social, but yeah, in the summer period, definitely 2 weeks. Every 2 weeks.
Yeah. Is that something you like to play any more, or is that a pretty consistent? Now we're into,
I'll say it's
allegedly
an average. So I think average of a year, if I'm lucky, every other 2 weeks. But obviously in the next few weeks and couple of months, I've got some stuff planned. So a bit more, hopefully.
Feast and famine kind of stuff. Yeah. So I'll get a couple of shafts. I'm going to push the base weight up a little bit and just change the balance points a little bit and see how your timing reacts to that. But certainly a good start point. Right, so just taking a similar shaft profile, but just taking the base weight up a few grams. So it's really a case of, you know, taking that as a good benchmark. If we just push the limits on it, at what point does the timing basically tail off? At what point does it become a little hard work? And then we can bring it back down. So
One thing I've always been curious about is obviously around stiffness of a shaft in terms of swing speed.
Yeah.
So if you've got a faster swing speed, do you need a stiffer shaft or?
Not necessarily, no.
Okay.
Not necessarily. So the stiffness is more about feel. So a faster swing player is generally more comfortable with a stiffer feeling shaft because at impact you feel a little less distortion.
Right.
But it's also over the years that's been the principle that people have worked to. So it's a feel that's comfortable because if you swing at like 105 odd miles an hour, then you've been put in a stiff shaft, so it's familiarity. But the long drive guys are now using a soft, equivalent of a soft regular, almost an A-flex shaft, senior flex shaft. So the stiffness on its own doesn't have a major influence at all on shot shape. Does a little bit on flight and spin, but not on the shape of the shot. So. Would
a less stiff shaft actually give you potentially better power and distance because you get more
Not really.
flex into it?
No, again, doesn't quite work like that. So the way the softer flex shaft kicks the head under a bit more, so it can help to launch it a little bit.
Right.
But ultimately, the bit that controls the distance and the dispersion is really the timing. So if the shaft and the weight and the balance allow you to just move and collect it, it allows you to move quicker, stay in posture, stay in balance, and then just deliver the head more efficiently. So your strike stays more stable, and you can build speed, but keep the strike and keep the control.
Okay.
Okay, so just had to change, because of the nature of the shaft, just had to change the weight in the head very slightly to accommodate that. So we'll see what happens with this. So it's a few grams heavier than the last shaft. But it's a common question, that. It's something that I think because over the history of fitting and shafts and golf tech, the consensus has been that the flex has a major influence on the dispersion. But the difference between a regular and a stiff flex is 3 to 5% of the actual bend of the shaft.
Right.
So it doesn't really do a lot. It certainly doesn't. The shaft doesn't flip the toe over. The head. Well, I'll use an iron. The head the shaft loads as you start down. It loads this way, kind of toe up, and then pops under a little bit at impact. So you do get a little bit of lead lag. So the softer it is, the more the shaft can bow and deliver dynamically a little bit more loft. But it's not going that way.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, so what we can see straight away there, this will be quite a good depiction on the screen actually, is by going, let me take the warm-up shots off of there, so we just get the driver swings. By going a little heavier, so one miss with the other ones, but then two hits sort of long up the left centre. By going heavier, they've gone left. So most of the time I think go heavier, stiffer, it's going to miss right, but for you fire and then the handle stays behind you, so you then flip the head through. So from a shot, from a kind of club data point of view, with the lighter setup, there was one that closed down, but then basically face to path is less than a degree closed, so it's just a soft little draw. With those, your path stays the same, it actually goes a little bit more into out, so in theory should then go to the right, but because you're then playing fetch with the club head afterwards, it's 7 degrees shut and 11 degrees shut, so creating a rip left. So the harder you try to, or the more you build speed, the more separation you get, the more you've got to flick the head through to get it. So we'll get rid of that one very quickly. But a really definite difference, really big difference there. And that's why the weight has, you can do whatever you want with flex, but it's not going to make the blindest bit of difference on the face closing, because that's where it catapults and flips. So.
Is that where I then invest more in lessons?
No, because that's a natural thought process with golfers. But your delivery, for a driver, 2.5, 3 degrees up, that's great. It's enough. It's not excessive. So if you get 6 or 7 degrees up, then that can create issues from a face stability point of view. But 2 or 3 is great. And then you're 1 degree into out and 2.5 into out. So it's a very orthodox delivery. It's a very square delivery. So you're doing your bit. It's just the club's getting out of sync. So for you, when it gets behind you, you play catch up. So same as me. If it gets behind me, I flip with my right hand. Others will push the handle forward and leak it right, but for you, it flips left.
Okay.
So I'm just going to try one other iteration. This similarly is a little bit heavier, but the weight's in a different place. So putting the weight more down the bottom. Okay, so fractionally heavier swing weight, but that's just because of the balance point in the shaft. Good hit. Yeah, again, really. So, I mean, this is, I only need the one with that. It's a really nice swing line again, 4 degrees up, 1 into out. But again, because we're still at that 67 gram versus 64, 65, it seems a stupidly small amount, but that's then, you kick through impact and then you're playing catch up with the head and it's just rip left. So.
Okay.
And we know it's the club because you didn't do it with the lighter one. Right. Or there was one swing and then the next just ripped down, but the club wasn't behind your hips as you got through. So. And you've kept your delivery line really nice. A lot of very low handicappers that would give quite a lot for that delivery.
Oh, I'll put that down to 30s of playing squash, hopefully.
What's quite interesting is squash often doesn't really, golf and squash often don't like one another because squash is, it's a pickup and it's a flick, it's a kind of hit down, which for golf is, well, it's good for iron play, but it's not so great for driving. But actually, you hit it almost more like a tennis player, and it's more like a top spin forehand, which is great. So it might be inadvertent, but it's great.
Probably why I've been playing well at squashing.
So I'm going to get the, I'm going to go a little bit lighter in the shaft again, just to keep the handle out the front of Tom, so it doesn't get stuck and flip. So, but I'm going to keep the bounce down the bottom a bit. Get a couple so I don't have to come back to the wall too much. This one goes next door, so I'll leave this back here. So just taking base weight down, so if anything a little bit lighter than that first one we tested. But likewise, just putting a bit of weight in the bottom end. So the theory there is that the handle comes with you, and the weight in the bottom end creates a little bit of a later hit, and means it should start more right. But should being the operative word. Yeah. Theory's great. But,
as long as I'm consistent.
Got to work in practice. Well, I say the delivery pattern's really stable. So, okay. So from that respect, you're doing your job. You're putting the same delivery on each time.
So you say that's more heavier towards the head end?
Yeah.
So I can feel it already?
Yeah, and it's about how much we can pick up. I mean, most golfers would say, oh, am I good enough? But our sensors are pretty well tuned in. Yeah. So we can feel a lot more. When you've got it side by side to compare, you can feel a lot more than most of us expect to be able to feel. I mean, it's a 2 or 3 grams difference in the shaft weight from the first one. But just, I mean, when the balance point changes, it's only about 1 inch, but it makes a hell of a difference. Mm.
Might have to do that one again.
I'll watch one more of that.
Just caught.
Okay. It's got the mat before the ball, that catapults the face over a little bit. Okay.
It's all going downhill now.
Yeah. Well, again, the consistency bit is that we're still in a heavier balanced. Whereas the previous shafts were heavier total weight, this is a heavier balance point than your original shaft and then the first one. So essentially we're going through each characteristic saying, right, if we change this, is it better, is it not better? And then we'll kind of, eventually we'll route back to where the first one was and see if that compares. So I'm actually going to get slightly less exaggeratedly balanced one than that. These two are both going to be a little bit strong in the weight-wise in the tip. So just keep it a little bit less exaggerated than those two. Let's go here. It's a bit less obviously tip balanced. sure this balance is where we want. Yeah, it's better. Okay. So still a little bit stronger balance than the first one, but not as much as the first one. Oh, bear me one moment. Just gotta sort that. Great. Okay, lovely. Thanks.
Good to go?
Yep, all good. Thank you very much. Okay. So definitely easier than the last one. Okay. Yeah, so we can't push dead weight. So I'm the same, I've got like basically there's a 2 gram window for me. And if I go heavier than 65 grams, it gets stuck and I flip it left. And balance point wise, I'm pretty sensitive to it. And you're quite similar. If we push the balance point a little too far, or the dead weight a little too far from going on the heavy side, the moment that club gets a little bit behind you, you then rip it around with your hand. That's probably an element of the racket sport, the squash. That hand fetches it quite hard and then it heads off left. So the less you've got to fetch the head through to a point within reason, if we can avoid you having to collect the head, that'll take out that left hand miss, or the majority of them.
Well, the good thing is none have gone right so far, which is a change.
Okay, still a little left. I'll see one more and I'll go back to that original one after this.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good speed. Good swing. That's a strong swing. Okay, still okay. Got a little more inside. Okay, let me go back to good speed.
Felt toey though.
Okay. Path got a little more into out on that. So interesting. If I go back to the first one, does that soften it off a little bit? As in soften the path off.
It's one thing I've been trying to focus on recently as well is after each hit, think of where I've hit it on the face of the club, so then understand where it goes. In terms of,
and if it gets a little bit toey, then it's just going to exaggerate any right to left spin, any draw spin. Just going to put the original weight back in as well. Yeah, and that's the thing for you, is that it's more about if we can get the directional consistency, and there's plenty of speed and plenty of distance there, so that's not an issue at all. But if you can feel confidence to the tee that you know, broadly speaking, where it's going to go, then that lets you free it up and lets you get that kind of 110 mile an hour club speed. You then, I mean, the first one was nice and long and straight, 285, 286 up the right centre, but then that makes that a average tee shot. If you get it right, then you're going to be 290, 95. But more important to be within the realms of the fairway. Where you certainly played recently, there are not wide fairways. So
no, and that's one thing I want to focus on, is my consistency.
Yeah, I mean, certainly from a swing point of view, I don't. From the line you put it on, I don't see a right hand miss other than one where you're protecting a left hand one, if that makes sense.
Right.
In terms of swing wise, it looks to me to be a bit of a right to left shape. So it might well be that when you get on course, we all do it. You get because you go, or don't mess it up and steer it a little bit. But if you can let the swing go, you're definitely kind of a slight draw bias from a swing standpoint.
Okay.
A little left, maybe. Okay, so path is getting a little. I mean, actually, timing-wise was nice. Path is getting a little bit more into out, so it's just face to target is only 0.6 of a degree off. So you're getting it back really square, but the swing line's going quite a long way from the inside.
Just going more out here and this way.
Feel-wise, yeah. So it depends whether you're actively trying to come more from the inside. If you are, don't worry about it. And if you're not, then just feel like you're just taking it outside a little bit more.
Go a bit more out.
A little bit, yeah. Look nice. Okay, so that's a toe strike, because actually what you did really well there is manage the club face. So the first one, the face closed 8 degrees. That last one, 2.5. So that's only gone right to left because the strike point's on the toe. So if you just stand that little bit closer, that was a much, much better swing line. Much better swing line.
Same really, again, just a bit closer.
Really, yeah, a really good change to what you did there.
Felt low.
Okay, yeah. So that feel from a line point, so lost a little bit on the strike, but that's now back to being, in terms of shot shape, a really controllable shape. So that's only got, it sounds like it's got sort of 13 yards, but that's a third of a fairway. That's really not very much. That's a third of a not very wide fairway either. So really good. So you're able, what's nice with this, you're able to maneuver it and control what you're doing rather than having been forced to kind of rip around it and it's only going left. You're actually managing to control the club face and control the shot shape. So I'm going to get a couple of other options similar to that, just because that's in a really good base position from a consistency point of view. So. Where I go. So it's a really, what's good from a shaft point is a very specific set of parameters in terms of total weight, so around the 64, 65 gram, but also where the weight sits. But we also don't, if we can use the shaft to bring the flight down a little bit, Tom delivers a, not a high launch, but where he's got lots of speed, we don't need to help it into the air with the shaft. So let's see where these couple get to. I doubt it's something that you'll be able to see. So probably not something you can see on the camera, but we've just, Tom's just had a look at the driver face. It's not something I saw earlier, and we haven't seen any weird data out of it yet. Will happen, but there are a couple of little cracks on the face. So we'll shift tack to not just looking at the shaft. We will find a head. It's something that technically is beyond warranty in terms of timelines. We can ask a question from Ping. It's clearly happened in the normal course of use. We'll look at a Ping option as well as an alternative, see what the best ones are. They may well, it's not cut and dried that they won't do anything on it, because it's clearly, because of the lines, what happens, they use sort of thick and thin parts of the face, and the lines are in sync with where some of the sides of those bits normally are. So there's normally a thinner bit in the centre, then a thicker bit outside that, and I don't know if I can catch the light right. There are two very small cracks just there, which they probably aren't visible on the camera there, but they do sit in line with where some of the construction, so thick, thin parts of the face sit. Okay. So pop that there for the moment. I shall get the current equivalent. Right. So I'll keep loft and everything the same to start with. And let's test a couple of different shafts. So as I was saying to cameras, we're looking at the shaft wall there, really keen to keep the dead weight and the balance point as similar as possible. In principle, these are structurally a little bit more stable. So the C6 is a very neutral, what I kind of call inoffensive shaft. It's sort of a mid-launch, mid-spin, mid-balance, mid-weight. Very vanilla, you might call it. Whereas these are designed to be a little bit more tip stiff. So will feel a bit more stout. In theory, should bring the launch and spin down a little bit, but we're also on a new head, so that could affect it a little bit as well.
Okay. slightly smaller than the head.
Yeah, they're marginally different shapes. Sometimes the markings things, so that one's got some little lines just inside the back corners just to make it look a little bit smaller as well. Still got the turbulators.
Smaller target though, isn't it?
Focus the mind.
Is that the top?
See one more there. Actually, line of the swing's still good. Pathwise is good. Just stand just a little bit closer. Strike's still a little on the tape. Yeah, that's better. Okay, that doesn't move as well. So that's, you can see that dropping under and that's flaring high right. So
yeah, it feels like it's going high out of the club.
Yeah. Change that one out. Yeah, and there are ways, if this ends up being the best shaft, whilst it's not the stiffest tip, in theory the lowest launch, it's got a parallel section that we can shorten, which for this shaft stiffens the tip up and will bring the spin down a little bit as well. Not all shafts do the same thing. On the Fujikura, the Ventus, if we shorten the tip section, it actually takes the stiff material out, so it ends up softening the tip. So it's not always a given that works. Again, another shaft designed to be that little bit stiffer. Okay, definitely moved better than the last one. Good ball speed. Okay. Came out that one, now whether it's a strike point, that one came out a little bit flatter, yeah, a little lower on the face, but that was face to path still in a good place there. So that definitely swung, but I mean, night and day to the last one. The last one, look, it dropped under and spooned right and looked like you're really gonna have to fight it. That one squared up like the first one straight away. So,
what's the target on the face to path?
So, about half of what your path is. So, which sounds like a real cop-out answer, but essentially, if you were, as you're 5 degrees into out, 2 to 2.5, and then the ball shapes more. So you think, oh, well, should the face to path equal the path? But the answer is because of the amount of friction on the face and the spin it puts on, that overdraws it. So actually, about 1/3 to 1/2, and it softens. It comes basically back to where the centre line is. Okay, I'll just take the tee height down just a little bit and then do one more. So it's still, as the shot pattern on the screen shows, it's still down a good line. That just caught a little high on the face. So that's why I've just dropped the tee height down a little bit, just to try and get the strike down the face a little bit more. I know the first one was low on the face, but that one then just caught up the top end. So yeah, just change the tee height slightly, but through the ball still nice and stable and under control. Okay, let me go back to the first one in that head. That would be a great trick shot in a long par 3.
Yeah, wouldn't it?
Match play, intimidatory tactics. What are you hitting here? Driver. Really?
Well, so we did a corporate day last year, and it was at Fox Hills again. I think it's on the long cross, and it was one of the guys took a driver on the par 3.
Yep.
Hole in one.
That's probably not a good day for a hole in one, I would imagine. That is costly. I've always thought it's a bit of a weird one with golf, in that you get a hole in one and then you have to buy everyone drinks.
Yeah.
Like it should be the other way around. But yeah, there was came quite close. I was in a comp a week or so ago, and Yeah, that would be a really 600 golfers, playing 300 on each course on the first round. It's not. There are far better times to have a hole-in-one than that. That would cost you a lot.
Yeah.
Just making the head slightly heavier, as we had to do before with this shaft versus the other options. Just need to increase the head weight a little bit, which potentially that's just where this one swings that little bit better. Even that last shaft was better than the previous one, but the more you swung it, the less control you had. Whereas actually with this one, the more you swung it, you were able to manipulate and maneuver the shot shape and keep the control on it. So just take it back to this, just needs a fraction more. Okay, there we go. So interesting to see how this in this head performs for you. So we know how well it swung in the original head. So the ground a little bit. Because it might well be that this head doesn't swing as well as another one. That's something we find more so than when the G410 was out. With this one, with the current heads, the weight distribution is a little bit more exaggerated. So some heads will just swing noticeably better than others.
Yeah, yeah, true. So it's not like, oh, you won't do, you literally just change the line, right? So that's a good thing. Worst case scenario there, it's just changing from 15 to 16.
So again, just feel that slight fade swing, just path dropped 10 degrees into out. So it's just for you, when it goes off a little bit, you drop a little more into out and then it flips. So feel-wise, just feel that little bit of a fade again. Which might sound odd if you've been battling a left to right, but actually potentially what you've done is you've just overcompensated a little bit from trying to avoid the right-hand side. Good. Good hit as well. Definitely squarer on the face. Yeah, so slight toe strike still, but that's then got the face to path 0.2. So I like where this shaft's swinging because you're able to make that adjustment, which is great. And then you keep ball speed there. Yes, you could do a standing just a little bit closer. I'm going to get a different head style just to see if that helps get a bit more control onto it. However, flight-wise, that's in a pretty good place. If you get the square contact, then you're going to see a little less of a loop and a drop. You're going to get a bit more flight and carry. But certainly shaft-wise, I like where that one's sat. Put these ones away as well. So where we've got the shaft at now is we've got the shaft in a really good place where we've got the control and Tom's able to manipulate it and correct anything that goes awry on course. Now it's going to see if a different head, because actually the original head swung nicely, actually better than the new version, which can only really be to do with weight distribution. So going to see if a different head helps to get the control and the timing consistency back.
Yeah, so it's only great to have like a grip adjustment.
Okay. Right. So picking heads that aren't overly exaggeratedly weighted. So the Titleist head is all titanium, so there isn't composite in it. So it's slightly more evenly balanced through the head. And then the Cobra can put the heavier weight at the front, which stops the weight getting too far back, which I think is going to cause Tom to get the club face getting a little out of sync. So we'll start with the Cobra. So when's next game likely to be, if the weather behaves itself?
Nothing booked in yet, but sort of look week from week. But if the weather's good this weekend, I might try and see what's available. But as you know, the one I'm looking forward to is in a few weeks' time in Mauritius. So,
so you have to get used to seeing your knees on the golf course. I used to struggle wearing shorts because my legs, I used to sway a little bit. So trousers I didn't see my knees. In shorts I could see my knees, and it really put me off. It's a bit like when I had my shadow over the ball. I used to have a little bit of a bump off the ball more than I do now. And so when your shadow was on the ball, I could see my shadow move off it. And in my head, all I could see was what I didn't want to see. Awful, awful.
All I can think now is next time I'm going to play golf in shorts is I'm going to look at my knees.
Yeah. I'm glad I just messed up your first tee shot. Yeah.
It might help, so I might be thinking about my knees rather than my swing. So
every silver lining has a cloud. Yeah. There we go. There's the Cobra head. See, us golfers will always find a way of dragging ourselves down somewhere.
Toe and high, I think.
Okay. So that one, the toe saved you a little bit. Face was a hair open, but it looked like it moved pretty nicely.
Okay.
So again, just creep that a little bit closer. Swing line's much better. Swing. Really nice move through the ball. Slightly high on the face, maybe?
Yeah, both have felt high.
Yeah.
Well, they felt high.
So swing line, good, 5.5, 5.8 into out, face 2.5 closed. Just got a little high toe.
Yeah.
So again, I'm just going to tee that down a fraction. That really good swing move on that.
Funny, that feels quite low for me now as a tee.
Yeah. So it might well be where this has got the composite top, the centre of gravity sits a bit lower in the head. So actually the strike points, the kind of the sweet spot sits a little bit lower on the face. Whereas with the G410, because the crown's a little heavier, the centre of mass sits a little bit, so the sweet spot sits a little higher up. So to get the best strike on here, you have to hit higher up the face. Whereas on that head, it'll be a little bit lower. So that's where kind of a representative contact could produce a kind of a high dead strike on that head, but would be really good on this one.
Right. So
you've often seen that with the Callaways. They've for a long time gone for that lightweight composite crown. So the sweet spot's a little bit lower on the face on those.
Okay.
Nice.
Felt more centre.
Okay, stronger flight. Okay, that's good. That's good. I'll swap head. I definitely will come back to that. So the Cobra head's pretty underrated. They've innovated quite a lot over the years, and I think because they've done orange and blue and red driver heads, it's been not necessarily taken as seriously as they could have been. But they've always done. This model's, I think, one of the, we kind of call it goes a bit under the radar. It's actually produced some great results, better than quite a lot of people have expected. But really good for spin consistency. So again, just change the weight in the back of this.
What we still say from where we found the problem with your irons, this would be the best. If you can go for 50, you have to go for the 505.
So swing weight wise, we're very, very similar to where your original one was at around D3. And that's really, it's an indication of the balance of the club, so you can get there one of two ways. We will be doing a detailed video on this one soon, actually. You can use the balance point in the shaft to get the weight down near the head or near the grip end to make the swing weight heavier or lighter. Or, like in this case, it's a fairly neutral balance shaft, but a slightly heavier head weight to achieve it. So, and they both time and swing differently. So you can't force it. You've got to use the right components to get it coming through as consistently as possible, so you're able to just then sort of stand and deliver with it. And that's why now the heads have as much of an impact as they do, because the amount of weight sitting right at the back, so far away from the tip of the shaft, creates a different gearing and a different linkage in the swing. So.
Right.
On the Titleist TSR 2. It's got a little underneath it.
Yeah. I think that's where I'm trying to change that path. I'm bringing it up too high almost.
Yeah, the club face stability is great. So the line you're putting it on is great, but the more inside you get, the more you're going to hit up on it. So if you take it out a little bit and just change the pitch of the swing a little bit, then you will catch it more at the nearer the bottom of the arc rather than heavily on the way up.
So then stand a bit further away from the ball that way?
No, I think where you're at's absolutely fine. It may be that just the tee height isn't quite as high as it was previously with that change. If you think of the swing as like a hula hoop, a circle,
yeah.
The more inside you get, the more the head's going to be travelling up when it gets to square. Whereas if you then square that off more rather than coming from the inside, it's more at the bottom of the arc when it gets square. So it's that slight change in what we call swing direction, but path and therefore pitch of swing means more inside you get, you're going to be hitting it more on the up most of the time, and the more out to in, you're hitting it more down. So you'll naturally hit a slightly less up on the ball with a squarer swing line than you will from 10 degrees into out. So, and that's where the tee height can just adjust to suit strike point.
Right.
But the face to path control is really good. Swing. Yeah, nice flow to that.
Felt toe again?
A little bit, yeah. So 1 degree face to path. That side we've got that really under control. This is just about strike point. That's right out on the toe side. So if you do exactly the same thing and stand about half a ball closer.
So I feel like was too close. It's just weird.
It is one of those things. Yeah, if it's something that's getting comfortable with it, and because you can't react if you go closer. Technically the right distance, or if it feels too close, you might find yourself backing out of it. So it's, yeah.
Okay. High, I think, on the face.
A little more open. Okay. Just from a distance from the ball point of view. It's the one that's missed the strike point. I was going to show that look more middle.
It felt more middle, but higher.
Yeah. Let's do one more with that, and I might switch heads back. Flight's good. Spin to launch profile's good.
That one felt.
That was a good hit. So ball speed's right back up.
That one felt more central.
Okay, we go back to the Cobra. That's definitely a better distance from the ball. Okay. It's really, so between the heads, it's really which head, I guess for want of a better phrase, compensates for your, where you tend to miss it best. Out the middle, they're all going to be good, within reason. But if your tendency is to miss a little bit out on the toe side, then what we don't want is a head that's going to knuckle it from that position. So that's somewhere where the Titleist heads tended to be very good. The Ping's historically been very good, but that one didn't swing as well for you.
Okay.
So
where was that on the face, out of curiosity?
Let me go back here. So
Slightly.
less out the toe, a little bit lower on the
lower.
face, which
Okay.
is why the spin's up a little bit, but the ball speed's good.
Okay.
I mean, I'd take that miss all day long because it's 280 yards up the left centre of the fairway.
Yeah.
But there's the potential, if you get everything out of that's in the tank, there's 292. There's another 12 yards in there.
And that's based on if you get it square to the face in the centre, it
And
should
just the
produce
strike
that.
goes up the face a little bit from where it was on that one, then the launch will go up, the spin will go down, you'll gain just a bit of flight efficiency.
Okay.
However, that one still, say, left half a fairway, still exactly where we want it to be.
As long as it's in the fairway.
Getting a little higher up the face, that sounded.
Yeah, and toey again, I think.
Yeah. Even though the toe strike's getting it seeing more right to lift than your swing's putting on it, so the face control with both of these is very good. That'll be an interesting one.
High and middle.
Okay, so that one's flared the spin. So that was actually a really nice swing, good contact. Maybe left the face a hair open, but that's then popped the spin. So I'm going to put the Titleist head back on. And really this is a case of seeing about getting as much consistency of flight as possible. So, because that was a nice swing, really square, face to path, half a degree, really square hit. There we go. Okay, just held the face off a little bit. So went a little higher at the face, but actually, again, as a miss, it's a great miss, it's 281 up the left centre of the fairway again. So the strike point got a little high up the face, but face to path 1 degree closed, so that shot shape's under control. As a miss, that works because it launches higher, spins, it keeps the spin down, launches a bit higher. So yes, you lose a bit of ball speed, but it's not flaring, it's not like the last shot with the Cobra, the spin popped up. So then it's like hitting a brick wall, whereas this one, the spin stayed low, so it kept the flight forwards. So it's actually still, it's one of those ones that we all react to go, oh, I mishit that, but actually if you just hold the finish, then all your friends think you still hit it great. But a really good club face control. Maybe just close that a little bit. Yeah, so path got a bit more into out.
Yeah.
Just whip the toe around a little bit. But it hasn't nosedived the spin. So actually you were looking at parameters, right, yes, there's right to left shape on it, but it hasn't gone down to 1500 revs of spin. It's actually at least kept it in the air a little bit rather than seeing a complete nosedive.
Well, I'm going to notice the club head speed dropped. Is that because of, is that like a weight thing, so it's not getting the speed through it, or is that just me just backing out of it?
Can be just slight variable swing to swing. It's been very repeating. There are some heads that you can move a little bit quicker, but if the flight's then variable, so you're then getting more variation at the far end of it. So, ideally, if you start to, where you're getting that swing line in the face too earlier, you start to see the ball in the fairway, you then free it up and gain that speed back through. Confidence is the ideal scenario.
Right.
But because of the amount of speed you've got, your good ones are going to go a long way anyway. So my priority is say, right, let's get as much stability to the flight rather than trying to squeeze a couple of yards extra out of it, because you're already up at the high end for amateur golfers, rather than hitting it 225 and we're trying to squeeze every last yard out. So. Nice move. Yeah, so that's pretty much the deal sealer. because that one, again, it's margin. Your strike point's marginally toe side, so we're still marginally toe side, but pretty much right in the centre. And so what we've then got is very square face, good delivery. It's a slightly quieter swing, but really good delivery. Nice bounce on a safe launch and spin bounce to that. Again, 284 basically right up the middle. You're very, very much, if I put it on carry and total for that sits right in the blue optimal zone for that. So because of the tendency to be a bit on the toe and to get a little bit drawy with the action, certainly for the toe strike side of it, I don't want to see the spin get too low, because then you lose carry, and then so the ball just falls out the sky. With those, if you get a little higher up the face, we've seen where the spin goes to. So that was sort of neutral to, I wouldn't say low on the face, but it's erring the kind of the bottom half of the centre. So you get it marginally higher at the face, the spin drops, and then you get another 5 or 6 yards out of it. But I'm mindful of not letting that spin get too low, because then the consistency of flight goes, and then you're then having to help it in the air. And so better for you to see it more of a kind of a mid spin. One helps a little bit from a direction point of view, but when you get it absolutely spot on, your spin's going to drop another few hundred revs, and then we don't want it to go from. I'd like it to stay in kind of moderate to the kind of the good end of low, rather than the good end of low and then too low. So that sort of flight's going to give you a bit more safety to it, a bit more consistency. As I say, we could squeeze another 5 yards out of it. Your strike point will do that anyway, but we risk it having that nosedivey, knuckly flight if we try and force it from the club. But what we're getting out of that combination is very safe flight from the head, but you're getting a good amount of control on the club face from the shaft. So the combination together, that's working really well. Whereas the Cobra, the good one with the Cobra is really good, then the spin flared up. The ping just didn't time quite as well. There's one other head. There's one other head I'm just going to do a quick cross-reference with, just to be due diligence. That's the TaylorMade. I'm just going to grab that. But what we're seeing from the Titleist, again, being like your 410, being titanium top, basically titanium head, it's not as exaggeratedly set up. So I think that's where we're not seeing the flare up and downs in spin like we are with the other heads. Put this one out the way.
Yeah, I've always quite enjoyed that club. So I think, curious to test out new ones. I've not actually tested out anything else for 4 years.
And the thing is, the flight off the ping, before we noticed the face, the good hits were in a really nice place for trajectory. So it was giving you good results. So it's more through necessity than the club not performing well.
Yeah.
So put those back and just get the QI 10 TaylorMade. So because the head isn't a high launching head, it's a bit like the Titleist isn't a high launching head, using the 10 degree in the Titleist, the 10.5 in this, because it tends to bring the flight down, whereas with the Cobra was the 9, because it kicks it up a little bit more. So this is really due diligence. That I'm very happy with where we were. The reason I haven't gone a Callaway, because out the toe those nosedive. Okay. So that's.
This is that the QI10?
Yeah.
Is that this year's model, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Going to see what weight we've got in there. Got a pack of weights, see if we can use those to change this. That's already the one I wanted to use. So. Like I did with the Titleist, just add a little bit of extra weight on with a little bit of lead tape. So we do the weighting internally or with variants on those weights in the build, just for convenience. The lead tape's easy to adjust club to club.
That's just something I've been asked. I've seen you do it before with the lead tape, but wondered if you remove that, how do you re-put it back in, be put inside the club, do you?
Yeah, so on that one, there are different weights that can go in the sole.
Yeah.
You can use a little bit of internal weight. It's called hot melt. It's a little bit of glue. So every head's got a little bit of glue inside to catch dust and debris that gets in there just through the manufacturing process. And so you can use a little bit of that, only a couple of grams. And you can put a little bit of mass right down the tip of the in the shaft in the build as well. But with the drivers, we like to use the weights on the head. It's a little bit cleaner.
Yeah. So it's the same shaft, just different head.
Yeah, so again, really like the way the shaft's swinging and the way you're able to control the club face. So if one gets away a little bit inside and shut, you're able to manoeuvre it and square it off again, which is great.
Toe again.
I'll see one more there.
Is it, I wonder if it's mentally because I'm feeling I'm getting close. I feel like I'm bringing the club in and that's why I'm towing
It
more.
can a bit, yeah, and that's really weird because I think your natural strike point is going to err that side. It's important to not go to a head that punishes you for hitting it slightly out the toe.
Right. So try just a bit more stretch. That felt better.
Okay, that was hit well. Okay, see one more with that. Good ball speed there. Okay. Okay, that's good ball speed. Let's do one more.
I should just step back.
Yeah,
I think
we'll
slightly.
do one more of that, and we'll do the same with the Titleist just to compare. That just looks like it's giving you. I don't think the head proportionately is giving you your ball speed. It's whether there's something about it that you're just able to move it faster.
Yeah.
So there are different aerodynamics on the heads.
Okay.
But that's
felt like-
also quite a safe ball flight as well.
Yeah. I felt like if I was a bit more away, I can get my arms to sort of stretch more.
Yeah,
Whereas I was doing this, I felt maybe a bit more.
a little bit constricted.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very consistent ball speed. Okay, I've got the face open a little bit more. Let's just see if we do the same distance on the ball with the Titleist.
So okay, I'll say that's probably more common to what I'll see on a course.
Yeah.
For it to go more right.
Okay.
Whenever I see a straight shot and get really excited at the top of the flight, that's when I start seeing it just to drift off
Okay.
to the right.
Yeah. So it kind of gives you hope halfway through, and then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thinking this is the best drive I've done on a fairway, and then
Yeah.
dreams just fade away
Yeah.
into the trees. Going back to the TSR.
Yeah. So ball speed's the same. Okay, maybe a little more toe side on that one, but similar ball speed. Okay. It's lower, but not
See if I can.
silly low. Slightly more into out on that one.
More into or out, so I'm going there to there.
Just a little bit, yeah. Good ball speed again though. that'll be interesting because that one looked like it stayed just a little bit right.
I felt terror again.
Okay, so that's still slightly better. So where you've given yourself a bit more space, you're generating a little bit more speed, ball speed's back up. With the TaylorMade, the one that went right, the spin popped. So by quite a lot, by about 1,000 revs. That one's only a few hundred. So the flight's still, I mean, the very longest shot today has been with the TaylorMade, but the variation on spin is about twice as much as with the Titleist. So even across a smaller amount of shots, the tolerance on spins, 650 revs versus 360. So that one is just giving you that little bit more reliability in terms of trajectory window. And okay, there's 3 yards difference, longest hit. But the shortest one's noticeably shorter because of where the spin fled to. So that's still a little bit better in terms of it's just giving you a more consistent end result. But giving yourself a little bit more space. I mean, that one's only moved in terms of shot shape. So it's drifted right. It's gone 16 yards. Sounds a lot, but it's not much more than the 3 bays widths we got here. So it's not moved a lot in the air. But potentially your ones that go right are where the path gets a little bit inside and then you leave the face a little bit open, so it starts
pushing
and goes a little
right.
bit.
Yeah.
So if the path gets in to out, then a push is always in there. It just depends on quite where that club face gets to. So probably from a swing point of view, if we can get the path, maybe even just through setup, a little bit squarer, you're not having to move the ball back to target quite as much. So you can start to kind of have a bit of a softer club face, not have to close it quite as much to draw it back to the fairway, kind of just leave it on line. And then that one ends up hitting right edge of fairway, and the one that hits left centre of fairway's left edge of fairway, rather than in the fairway missing it right, or then having to really work it back and then missing the fairway left because you've overdone it a little bit. Right. But there's a tendency just to set up just a little bit to the right. So, but having said that, your swing line consistency with the Titleist club here, you've got 1 degree tolerance on angle of attack, 1 degree tolerance on club path, so you deliver it really consistently. But potentially, because of setup, are having to work the club face a bit more than we'd like, and that's giving just a little bit more dispersion. So potentially just practicing with a club on the ground just to make sure that you're not closing off the stance a little bit, which then should keep the start line a little bit straighter, which then means you don't have to move it quite so much. Should just help just to nip the margins in a little bit.
Yeah.
But
and you're saying about the spin popping, is that spin going down or up?
Up, particularly with that TaylorMade. So the peak spin, I'll go back into peak spin with the Titleist, there was one at 3,120. 4,000 with the TaylorMade. Okay. So that's a 5-wood spin, which is a lot. Ball speed was still good. That was still up 158 mile an hour ball speed. But then the shot before that was 161 was 291 distance. That went down to 259. Whereas we're going from 288 to for that one that spun up to 279. So it hasn't lost you quite as much distance. So that front-back dispersion and then the picture flight windows that much tighter as well. So.
And am I right in saying, if I understand it correctly, if it's more spin, it's more likely to fly higher and longer, so you carry shorter, or?
So with the driver, if the spin goes on the high side, then it's like hitting a brick wall. It stalls and then drops. So there is a kind of a window where higher will carry further, but then won't roll quite as far, and then lower won't carry quite as far, but then runs out a little bit further.
Find that sweet spot.
But if you go outside of those, then too low loses you carry, and too high, equally speaking, loses you carry, and then it stops dead. So there's the majority of shots with the Titleist, so the tolerance of under 2 degrees on launch, and that's with one high on the face. If I sugarcoat it and take that out, you've got a 1 degree tolerance on launch and a 380 rev spin variation top to bottom, which is really good. So it's a very, very consistent picture flight. And again, 1 degree angle of attack, 1 degree path, and then a little bit. There's the odd one. There was one where you got a little bit more strongly into out, which is going to exaggerate the face to path numbers. But then 3.5 degree tolerance, so that's either side, on club face, but you're 6 degrees into out. So if we can soften that down, then the ones where you leave the face on line are all in the fairway. From 6 degrees into out, you've got to close the face to get it back to the fairway. So it's potentially just bringing in a little bit more movement than is necessary. And if you can set up a bit squarer, then you can just leave the face on line, which is pretty much like, well, 2 shots before, where face to path 0.3 of a degree, and then that's just then line drive down the fairway. So easy game.
Easy.
Yeah. So so essentially very, very, very similar. Shaft-wise, we're in a very, very similar place to this. Maybe 1 or 2 grams lighter, but very similar from a balance point of view. And we can stiffen the tip up just a little bit more for you there, which again helps. We're not too low on spin, but it just helps tighten it up at the tip and just bring the spin down 50 to 100 revs. But yeah, very, very, very similar. Even the colour scheme is quite similar.
Yeah.
Sartorially matching. Black at the bottom rather than grey, and then blue at the top. But going to the TSR2, which is the difference between the TSR3 and the 2. The 2, for that little bit more consistency, it's slightly better off centre. So that view's giving you that consistency of flight, ball speed, spin. But from the 10.5 degree 410 LS lofted down a bit, we're in the 10 degree TSR2, which it's not a high launching head, so hence the flight's in a nice window there. So very, very similar base specs. A little bit more consistency off centre, I think, but shaft-wise in a very, very similar window. So,
Okay.
So from what started off as just replacement for a delaminating shaft, and into replacement for a cracking head as well.
Yeah.
Raw power of the man doing it,
Yeah.
clearly. So ended up with a very similar setup in terms of shaft, and not wildly dissimilar on the head as well. Just a kind of modern version with a little bit more consistency and say slightly different materials, but a very similar profile of shaft. Overall, anything in particular that you were surprised with from that, other than finding that the driver face was cracked?
Well, yeah, apart from that. For me, I guess it's all about on the off-centered hits, about how it can be more forgiving in the fairway. And always like coming here to understand more about the effects of the spin and the launch angles and how that can affect my swing and the overall result, and staying on the fairway, being more consistent.
Yeah, when you got the length that you've got and the speed up at close to 110 miles an hour, actually everyone focuses on distance. You actually got plenty of it. So for you, as you rightly said, where your miss pattern tends to be, there are heads like the Titleist here that just suit that better than other models. So that can help mitigate some of the variation in shot. And if we can give you some confidence to sort of say, right, I know if I put a reasonable swing on it there rather than there, then you can then use your speed and the distance as a real kind of advantage. So as I say, there are horses for courses in terms of head setup in that respect. So glad you've enjoyed it.
Yeah,
Swing's looking very good. Believe it or not, this chap plays off 16.
On a good day.
But I should sign you up for a better ball comp, I think, based on swinging like that. But I hope you like the fitting. It just shows how much benefit there is, no matter what standard you are. And Tom's by no means a high handicapper, but it's not just for the low handicaps. We can really make definite gains and use the equipment to everyone's benefit, no matter what standard you are. So hope you like the fitting today. If you have, subscribe, hit the like button, and we look forward to bringing you more content like this down the line.